Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Welcome to EMIYTV Put Your Family First podcast. I'm telling you, we gotta get back on track for the black, and that's all right. Yeah, that's all right. So today, how y'all doing? What's up, Dr. Heather?
Hello.
We got a new GM in the building, Brother Dave, and on the wheels of steel, my friend and brother, the bald-head assassin.
Oh no.
My man who can't seem to get a break, but he takes them anyway. The infamous.
I don't even like that answer.
My man, Doctor, the practitioner, Miles Dixon. We got the owner in the building today with us. The owner.
Child support.
Child support to do it every time.
Make a brother step up. Step your game up. Go to work. Step your game up. Go to work.
Every time.
I thought I was the boss.
No, we in here. We're going to get it in and have this conversation because I think it's important that we understand today is about soul listening, and it's the women's edition. So, you know, my mother used to say when we was young, we was growing up, remember how you grow up and you go outside and something happened and you walk up on the porch and your mother say, you know, a hard head make a soft ass.
That's not what they say.
Oh, that's what they say.
I heard behind. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, well, we heard that. Where we come from, we heard ass. You know, you might have heard behind. We heard ass. So,
Depending what day it was, right?
right, right, exactly, right. And so, we're gonna get off into this because I think it's important. So, Miss Heather, take us down this road so we can really get some great feedback. Right, and make this happen.
So I'm just going to do a little bit of a recap so that we can frame this conversation. So when we talk about soul listening, we're talking about the ability to listen for understanding, for clarity, for action, to see what your next steps might be. And so last week, we talked about this from the perspective of the men, and looking at them from a defensive nature, what things trigger their defenses. And it's much the same for the women, but we're going to talk a little bit about that this session and talk about how women get defensive when either they're trying to be corrected. We had a great example this morning. About how, I'm speaking personally for myself, about how I feel when I am, or I feel that I'm being made to seem incapable of doing something. I know in my heart and in my mind that part of the capacity of a man is to problem solve. So I know that. And when I'm solving the problem myself, my way, and then, a male steps up to solve the problem for you, I feel some kind of way about that. So it sets off my defenses because in my mind, it makes me feel like I'm being rejected. like my ideas, my way of doing it is not good enough. And so it sets me on defense. And although it takes me a minute to come back and get recentered and refocused to know that part of his strength is to problem solve. And so I have a choice to make. I can continue in my rage, I call it my fire. So continue in that fire space, or I can take a deep breath and then recognize that I have somebody in my life who allows me not to have to do it all the time. And that's one of our complaints as a woman, is that we feel like we have to do it all the time, make all the decisions, do all the work, and you're in it by yourself. So it's the very thing that we often complain about. And then when you have it, you're still complaining, but you're missing the point. And so I think it's always better to have two people with an idea. And if it's not my own ego, which I know that's part of it too, and my sense and my feelings of rejection, as if I'm not good enough, I put that on me. He's not putting that on me. I put that on myself as a judgment on myself because I don't like the way it makes me feel. So I have to keep unpacking that bag, finding out where those things come from. And so I understand that that's where that comes from for me. It's the same sense of rejection that I am growing out of and understanding better. But also understanding that when you have a mate, that you're coming together with more than just you. And so the strength in that is also very empowering. So that's our conversation today. How do we do that better? And what things set us off and put us on defense as women?
Well, that's a start.
Have I silenced the men?
You ain't silenced me, but that's a start. I think, when you get off into, right, because what woman doesn't get defensive? What black woman doesn't get defensive, right? She taught to be defensive at the grocery store, at the corner store, at Macy's, J.C. Penney, Target.
So what do you see her being defensive about?
Anything.
No, because be specific. I gave a specific example. You can't just say everything.
Okay, I didn't say everything. I said anything, right?
Yeah.
Just happened. Pick a certain thing, not everything. It just happened. So I'm standing in the grocery line. I give you a story because we have to do this all the time. Me and Tone, when we go to the store together, we have to entertain the whole store to keep the riff down because the riff is coming, right?
And what's the riff?
A woman is going to be upset about something at the cash register. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed, right? It's a guarantee, right? So we get in line, right? 2 people up. Oh, I thought this was a sale. What you mean? Well, it's a sale. It's a sale, right? It's right here on the paper. Big as my hand. Sale expired. The day of, right? So the sale was expired a week ago. She trying to be slick. So she's standing there. She rolling her head. Oh, you might want to get the manager because now she going to force the manager into taking the document that clearly stated this coupon expired a week ago. So, ma'am, you're not listening. No, what you not going to do, you get all of that. So that learned behavior is a problem, and we deal with it, husbands and men in relationships, we deal with it a different way.
So what's under that? What's causing that outside of what you're referring to as learned behavior? What's the root under that? So I understand by peeling back my layers, I'm triggered because I feel rejected. I feel like my ideas are rejected or my way of doing something is rejected. So I understand that that's where that is coming from for me. Okay. So what you're saying in the market, so in the marketplace, it could be that, it could be anything, right? So is the underlying reason for her defensiveness is that it's financial. So she's trying to save money. She's trying to, manage her budget, and maybe she had budgeted that out. And now that she's budgeted that out, her argument is, now you're pulling into my pocket. So that's a trigger for her.
Okay.
So as I'm pulling back the layers, are men doing the same thing? Are men pulling back the layers? Are you responding to what you see on the surface as opposed to what the deeper issues are?
So today's episode says soul listening, the defensiveness of women. This ain't our day. We had our day last week. We went through the abuse and all that comes with being a man. We did that. So today, right?
Soul listening. So who are you saying is not listening? Are you saying that the women are not listening?
Women don't listen, baby.
I'd like to hear you explain that.
The title again is soul listening. If we're not, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If you're not connected, you will be in a defensive mode, right? Because we really not connected. Because maybe you sitting across the room, you might not like the shirt I got on today, and that might be something that irritates you. And so now that you're irritated, you're going to respond a certain way. But if I say to you something indirect, like you were just talking about, in defense, instead of listening to what I'm saying, the first thing you respond, because how I said, because men, we say it this way. We don't go, you should really go. We don't do the bob and weave. We go right there. Baby, you should do this.
And this is what we should be listening to.
If I'm in your life, I call your wife, you got to listen.
I have to listen.
You have to listen. Because if I'm in your life and you ask me something, I have to listen.
Well, I think it is really connected to looking at the deeper meaning, the deeper message. And if you're really listening for clarification, for understanding, to I want to say to solve the problem, but are you looking to solve the problem? And so when we're talking about soul listening, looking at, I guess, the female perspective, we're talking about, am I hearing you? Not necessarily that you're hearing me. Is that right? Is that how you're saying that?
Yeah. It takes a lot. So
it does take a lot.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot to hear. And listen.
Yeah, because you gotta.
You have such a different.
Because we got
dynamic.
I think it's also, and Dave, you can tap in on. I think men have to. We have to bob and weave through all the lies that other people put in place. So then once we show ourselves on this authority, we still got to chip away at some of that stuff for you to really listen. And then once you listen, it has to go through something else before you actually buy in. Whereas when men start to listen, right, because we went through this last week, we're listening, like you said, to solve the problem. So if we're looking to solve the issue for women, right? And you know this, you did. Come on now, you got clients you deal with. They sitting in there, and they could be sitting in there. We deal with people all the time who don't know what accountability is. So if you're not willing to listen, how you gonna learn accountability anyway?
But you also have to. You have to give people a reason to listen.
Oh.
And you have to give them something to listen to.
Okay.
And listen for. Because if you're trying to build bridges, and I hope prayerfully that that's what we're doing for one another, is trying to build the bridge so that we can tear down all the things that we know have been lacking, that we know have been barriers, and that we know that with each other, one another, we're really just looking for the understanding.
Right.
We're not looking to be judged, right?
Right.
And so if the conversation and the tone is judgmental, it automatically puts you on defense.
So now we're being judged.
As a woman,
Right.
it puts you on defense.
You can't build a bridge without tearing down a bridge. So things got to be tore down in order for you to build anything. You can't
Yes,
build,
but not the person.
we're not tearing down the
person. Careful.
Right.
The things have to be torn down, not the person's self-image, not the person's identity, not the person's feelings. Like, those things should not have to be sacrificed if we're doing soul listening.
Yes.
So let me inject.
Go, Dave. Go.
But let me inject. The first part of it, we have to ask the question. It comes down to soul listening. So what is the soul? The mind, the emotion, and the will. So one's mind have to be transformed, if you will, changed, altered, edited, because things that we take in from our background becomes our present moment, right? Mm-hmm. But if someone brings their present moment to play, there's going to be some conflict. So you have to be open-minded to be able to receive what they're presenting. Then you talk about taking the layers back because you went through rejection and all the other things you present in the strongholds, right? Mm-hmm. Well, all those also center in on that emotion. If those emotions haven't been addressed either, then it's going to cause a conflict with how you process information. Yes. But if you address both of those two components, then you're going to move into the will. You now become willing to hear, not audibly, but hear in a listening process, in a listening mindset, where you're processing the information to move it from I'm right, you wrong, I'm right, to more of what you just talk about, that understanding. But that is about a discussion at that point. It's not an argument. It's not about proving who's right or wrong. It's about us sharing information to come up with a highest probability of us being able to understand one another.
A discussion, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Which is different is if we're talking, if I'm saying to you, baby, and then I follow that up with something that is needed to be said. Mm-hmm. And you listen.
Needed to be said.
Yes. And you listen. Because things might come from this person who you don't, right? Here's another perception that affects women with listening anyway. You don't value my conversation to have the wisdom for you to really listen, because you will say, again, I just need you for this. See, you already didn't put the limitations up. I just need you for this. So when I move into the category where I'm expressing my wisdom, it's hard for you to listen. So you got to go bust your head, right? The whole night. But I'm talking in protection, which is different if you don't understand when a man is talking in protection. Mm-hmm. That's part of the whole dynamic that is difficult for us to accept in soul listening. Because in soul listening, there's not a lot of protection that has been built in her for her to understand, baby, don't do that. Something as simple as that. Baby, you really don't want to do that because this. Oh, you know.
Are we going to get the because, though?
Or yeah, you will get the because.
You don't
will you
do that.
Accept the because is the issue. And that's what men deal with. Will you accept this wisdom that I'm imparting to protect you in your life? And 9 out of 10 times, right? What's that stat you found? You are 687% likely to divorce if you got a single woman in your ear. That's a statistic.
So you're saying, let me see if I missed it. I didn't catch that statistic. So you're saying that if a married woman has a single woman in her ear, she has 600 plus number to likely end up in divorce? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm tracking.
Yeah.
So, but let me use your example about when you went into the grocery store and the woman was really kind of defending herself because, as Dr. Heather said, that she had her reasons behind why she was doing what she was doing. So if that be the case, wouldn't it have been feasible for her to first hear the cashier say this because the coupon expired, right?
Right.
That would be, she'd be open-minded to hear why she's not getting that discount. But if she comes back in a defense mode, to know that first it said expired, so no matter how you play it, it's expired.
Right.
So it really shouldn't be about a defense, right? But there's something saying that you're taking something away from me, but in reality, she's not.
Well, she
Because
was being slick, Dave.
Well, I mean, I get
Yep.
that, but I'm just saying that's how. That particular example is not just in the grocery store. That same example will be in the household, in the community, because she's maintaining the status that's saying that I got to be right versus trying to get clarity of understanding why this particular cashier is presented to. You have facts now. This ain't about my emotions. It's how I feel. They expired 7 days ago. Why are we having this conversation?
Well, the home is the first place slick is being accepted.
I understand that, but that's my point. It's being carried, and that's where the soul listening comes, because we have to start, as Dr. Heather said, we have to start pulling the layers off. That can't get to the grocery store first, and then now say you start acting the fool trying to cook because you ain't in that mindset.
Right.
But if you at home and you think about, wait a minute, did I handle that correct? Let's say she had that situation, went home, thought about it. Next time she go in the store, first thing she need to be doing is making sure that it inspired.
Right.
So she generated a conversation. That could have been woman to woman.
Right.
She generated a conversation of being defensive when it wasn't necessary because she was blatantly wrong.
And people will give you that discount, Dave, just because they don't want to deal with you.
But my point is, instead of, as Heather brought another point in, instead of addressing the person, that's how that seemed to come off, you need to address the issue. And the issue was your coupon expired 7 days prior.
Yeah.
So you had no reason to be defensive. You might have tried to be lucky, but you had no reason to be defensive.
Right.
So, okay.
So LaShawn in the group said, do you have the discernment to know if what you are saying is ready to be received? Sometimes you can have the right words at the wrong time.
And so is that for him or for her?
It would be for her. Right. Him talking to her or whoever, right?
Him having the right words for her in that moment.
The right words at the wrong time. So
Okay.
I'm saying all the right things, but it might be the wrong time for her to receive it.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially if she's,
Not so listening.
if her fire is raised.
Okay.
Because sometimes when your fire is raised that high, whatever you put on is just going to incite that flame.
So again, we're going to hand all of these excuses to her. Is what we're determining in this conversation.
That's not what we're doing.
She gets the feedback, right? Here's another one. Rhea says, just because you think is wise doesn't make it wisdom. Is that not what I said? Right? What is the basis of his thought pattern? I'll complete that.
Okay.
What is the basis of his thought pattern? Meaning it is spiritual or emotional. Again, notice the thought pattern. We say soul listening. I'm in protection. The feedback that she just gave is exactly why there is these walls. If I'm with you, we together, I've more than proven. Why do I have to keep proving over and over and over again when I say, baby, do this? And it should be done because I've already proven I have the wisdom, you got the support and all of that. Where is the pushback coming from? Why? Because you're not listening. You're only listening to see if it's beneficial to you and it makes sense to you. You're not listening for the protection to be the thing that helps you move past what you're thinking.
Well, you know what helps with that?
Uh-oh.
Is to actually say, I'm trying to protect you.
Okay.
I want to protect you. I want you to be safe.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to harm you.
Okay.
So sometimes it actually is helpful to use the words. To use those words is helpful to hear it because it also helps to quench that fire.
Okay.
And it makes you feel like you can trust that. So if she's not trusting what she's hearing,
Right.
then that's another conversation about where do you stand with your trust for one another. And so, but that conversation can happen much better is if you're actually having the conversation and talking about, this is how that made me feel. So, and this is what I'm feeling. And this is, that reflective process. You really have to continue to do that reflective work, because you need to know where those triggers are coming from.
Of course. When I described it earlier, I said, once we get through these walls in this situation, and I've proven that I'm valid, I still have to chip away at more walls.
Right.
Right? Because why?
It's ongoing. It's not a one and done.
It's ongoing. But
it's ongoing.
I seen
Trust
a couple.
is built over time.
I watched our neighbors, Betty and Sam. Sam had to say one damn thing. How did Sam get to that position?
That what?
That position.
To do what?
Well, all he got to do is say it one time.
Oh.
It's over the years, right? But chipping away at some of the same barriers.
So how long have Sam and Betty been married?
Well, they've been married a long time. I get that.
But 40 years.
Yeah, they've been married 40 years. But you got to chip away. But just like Sam said, this was one of his things in their relationship. You can't go out this door. Whatever argument we gonna have in here. You can't walk out of here. You can't call your girlfriends. We gonna deal with it while we in here, right? So we can handle that. Whatever we gonna go through, we gonna go through right here. We grown, mature. I mean, we do that, but how many people is picking up that phone going, woo?
Well, a lot of that is because, again, that's where you guys at, where Sam and Betty, you said? And it's a level of maturity. One of the things I've seen out of one writing from John Gottman, who him and his wife have spent 40 years researching marriage and couples, is that the main focus they say that women want the most is trustworthiness. That is something you have to build over time. And as she said, it's not a one-shop stop because, again, you may do or say something that's going to question whether they can trust you or not. And that's vice versa. That's just children, no matter what the gender is or the age, is based on, can I trust you? And so, as you said, Calvin, if someone says, baby, I want you to do this, and you don't want them to question it, then what has happened over the course of time, you have solidified your value by showing them that you can be trustworthy consistently. Now, the consistency doesn't mean 100% because none of us going to hit that mark like that.
Right.
The best of marksmen, experts can't get 100 times all the time. But however, your percentage is high. So like the old rule 80-20, maybe now you are 90-10. So therefore, that person will be more prone to say, okay, I know he got my best. I'm going to give it a shot because I trust him. I'm going to go in blind faith and trust him. But now if you flipping the script, you flip-flopping back and forth, and you're presenting in a way the person feel like you trying to take my rights, my ability, my value away from me, then they're going to jump back into questioning whether they can trust the individual.
Exactly. But the whole point, as we break this down, the whole title is Soul Listening. So we have to do a better job of applying the process deeper in order for us to move better. What's trustworthy? People tripped. We out, this is about 4 years ago. Me and Heather, we go to a thing. I handed my phones, both phones, to her. I'll be right back. Now I'm gone. Now I'm over at the bar. I done went to the bathroom, seen some people I know. My phone's still over there. Man, my boys walked up on me like, hey, dog, you left your phone, both of your phones with your wife? I said, yeah. He was like, oh, you really open? I said, no. They're my phones. She got the password to them and all. I got to be a child if I'm going to allow a phone to be a problem in my relationship. I mean, I just got to be this kid. Come on, man. Y'all really have, man, give your wives your password, everything. You a phone? You gonna let the phone be a problem? No, that's just one less thing. So when you show trust, you give trust, you build trust. You can't build trust from the dynamic. What you doing with my phone? You can't build trust that way. Oh, you can never have access. I don't leave my phone sitting out. Why? Because these are things that damages your relationship. You can have privacy, but she need to have access to me. So the phone has never been an issue for me. I done seen people break up, go away.
But because they don't really have a solid foundation of what trust is about. And so therefore, I'm not going to let you look at my phone because I don't trust you like that because I got something to hide. If you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to be concerned about.
Man.
So that's what that comes to.
Yeah, and it also depends on that vehicle. What is the vehicle that's being used for trust? So maybe it's not your cell phone. Maybe it's your bank statements. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's your income taxes. Maybe it's your 401. Maybe it could be any number of things that particular item is. And if it's not a big deal, I think you have to, the value has to match up. So if for you a phone has this weight, but for me that weight is me being able to see your bank account or your bank statements or your spending habits, your Amazon cart.
But
right?
we sit down, open up the computer, pull up all the bank accounts,
right,
and review the financials.
Right.
There's another building block towards your trust.
Right.
This is another solution.
But that's what you're saying. That happens over time, and the tool or the vehicle by which that is happening has to continue to unfold in multiple situations. So your cell phone is one level, your bank account is another level, your journal is another level, your text messages, like there are different levels of how you have to build that trust.
Yeah.
And what you are sharing. The other part is that we have tough conversations. We can talk about those tough conversations.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I don't feel some kind of way about it. It means that my intention is to put me to the side so I can hear what you're saying.
Well, sure.
So my issues, I can sit my issues to the side and then I can bring them back up and say, I got triggered by this thought, but this is where it's coming from. And recognize and share that it was only a trigger because this is what happened to me in the past.
And it shouldn't be where a person said, well, they tell you that's their trigger, then you turn around and use it against them. They're just informing you that this is what made my emotions react. And if you're just getting this information, you can use that information to ensure that y'all can keep building on that trust. But if you're hiding information, you can almost bet eventually that whole piece of trust is going to break again. So it's not the vehicle, as you said, whether it's the phone, bank account, all that should be, especially in a marriage, should be open game anyway, because y'all trying to build something. But that, again, requires not for you to do CPR when somebody having a heart attack. That's for you to prepare for the heart attack that may come. So you do things in advance. You have these discussions. You talk about how you feel, even before you marry somebody. And if you can't openly speak on these things without somebody getting defensive, or at least saying, well, it bothers me right now, but let me think about it. Let me come back to the drawing board and we discuss it later, and come in as Calvin said, not as a child, but as an adult, mature person, so y'all can move forward and have that open line of communication. This is why most of the marriages fall apart, because, again, the open line of communication is not open. It's just partially open. It's like cracking your door. I'll let you peek in, but I ain't letting you come all the way in.
Yeah, and then you got to throw in the deception, right? When you got an underlining, well, I was told to not tell the man, right? I got to have my own stash because if something happened and he leave. So you're already preparing for failure, and that's the thing you can't do in a marriage. You can't do it. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she was like, "But Dad, I said, I view my marriage of 20 years as success. I did 20 years. Was married 20 years. I view that as success. It was an accomplishment. I don't view it as failure. It happened. I hate that it happened. But the 20 years that I was able to accomplish was huge. People have a tendency to, like you said, how you didn't come in. Then once you got in, then we got the you got the work wife. You got the all these other things going on, fully distracted from the value of the marriage, family, relationship. So if you're going to go into a real relationship, right, understanding literacy plays a huge part in this area as well. So we're back on the literacy piece, because how many people can have and then translate the conversation or even understanding?
Right.
How do I get an understanding when all I know is emotion? So you gotta be real keen at building the type of communication and listening that comes with a successful relationship. Because if I gotta say it 3 times, maybe you missed it, right? But if I'm in time 10, you're just not buying it. You know what I mean? So you have to, as men, yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is for us as men. I'm speaking for men and how we should be listened to, because that, for women, is an important asset to having a good man, is her ability to be able to listen to him.
To listen and to trust. I agree with that. But you also have to give her some things to trust. You also have to hear her. You also have to, I think when we're talking about soul listening, really, what does she need?
You're doing it.
What?
Defensive. You're giving the alternative. We understand that. But you came right back to, you have to give, you're doing exactly what she would do. That's exactly what she would do. As I just said.
Say,
yeah.
Try to understand me.
Can you accept what I just said without you having to give that feedback?
Can I trust what you said without having to give the feedback?
Yeah. Active listening, LaShawn said active listening is a skill. Rhea, I thank you all for participating. Rhea said, yes, the old school mentality some scoring women feed to younger women. Yeah, that's the negativity. That's really a lot, Rhea, of what happens is bad advice to both boys and girls early on. In our example, that's a bad advice, and we put it on display, which is a bad advice.
So let me ask you, you're saying that when a man presents to a woman whatever he presents, she should be able to take it face value without feedback? Is that what you just said?
I'm saying once we come to the understanding, when I say this, she doesn't always have to give that response.
And the understanding is y'all had this discussion about how y'all feel in relation to communicating. Yes. So she understands the foundation.
Yes. And
you're building on that. And as you got to a certain point in your relationship, you should be able to say, well, dear, don't move the car because it's going to blow up.
Right.
And she should say, okay, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Because one, as we determined here, it was earned.
Okay.
We went through the processes. We chipped away at because that's what her being able to hear me ultimately is going to bring her more peace. If you can hear me, because men, we try to simplify things for everybody. That's what we do. Most of us, right? I'm not saying not.
Let's say a good portion of us. A good portion of us,
right?
I won't go most.
Right, because we do have certain emotion things intact, right? I agree with you 100%. But in that process, are you able to? This is where I can't be with him, right? Right? We gonna pop the balloon. They do that whole pop the balloon thing. What's wrong with him? Right? So I'm gonna pop. Hold on. I'm gonna pop the balloon. He said, "Well, you know, I'm a doctor. I'm going on to be a such and such. And I own several property." And they go pop, 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 pop.
So you need to frame that though. What you're talking about?
Right? It's a show. It's for dating. Right? Right. So they pop the balloon. So the guy comes out.
They pop the balloon because.
Why did you pop your balloon? And they'll say, "I didn't like his shoes."
So part of how they are communicating their compatibility is to keep the balloon solid or to pop it if they find a difference.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so,
Well, all righty.
right. Oh, that outfit he got on. Oh, yeah, I would never, that outfit. Oh, yeah, you too short. Well, the one I said, I'm 4'11". I want to look all the way up. He 5'9". So, right.
Superficial. Though some things are.
And this is what, when we are talking about dating and processes and caring and getting to know someone, you have to get beyond your idiosyncrasies, your issues. Just because his shoes ain't the type of shoes you like, listen to the conversation. Oh, well, he already lost me. He was wearing a Nike tank top. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you lose your blessings, because you're not really listening. Remember the story I told you, right? And I tell women this all the time. And ladies, you have to really pay attention to this. You have to take yourself out of these 5 places. If you got your feet in 5 doors, right? These are imaginative doors, right? It's the plumber. It's comedy. It's the comedian's house. It's the job boyfriend. It's the old boyfriend, and then it's the boy. So you got 5 places that you put yourself, and then you go to your knees and ask God to send you a man. Then the guy shows up and he got on a pair of shoes that you don't like. You might have just missed that blessing because of the way you think you are supposed to select. It's order. He that findeth a wife. I ain't read nowhere it says she that findeth a husband. I ain't read that one yet. So you have to present yourself in a way that I can be this husband to you. Now, men got to come to the table with a better understanding that they got to be out of them same 5 places, because you can't focus on the wife that you have when you are spread out coming in the door. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have problems, and so that's just part of it. But in order for me to listen, it has to be old school. I ain't heard nobody in a while. My son called, said, "Dad, how did you get women?" I got on the phone, put Luther Vandross in the back, and I got to rapping. I come from the rap era, not the hip hop, hippity hop. Girl, what's your sign? You know what I mean? We come from that era. I'm here to get to know you. I come from that era, right? And so, yeah, y'all bought into the thugs. Y'all bought into a lot of these thugs who like other thugs. You know what I mean? Like, they don't mind. You know what I mean? Y'all like them, which is crazy, and cool with them. You know what I mean? That just blows my mind. But
yeah, we had that conversation.
Yeah, but to understand, sisters, women, if you just listen to him, you're going to bring yourself so much more peace. That's just where I'm at with it. Now, y'all can go ahead and debate. But if you listen to him, if you got the ability to really listen.
It's not a debate. Our ultimate goal is to build those bridges for families. We need healthy families. In order to get to healthy families, we need healthy men and women to come together in a relationship where you can build and you can communicate and create safe spaces for yourselves and for your children so that we can continue to build our family, our future. That's how we're going to rebuild and make our families great, right?
Yeah.
Is that we have to do this level of investment. And we have to remember that if it's going to change, it's because we changed. It's not outside of you. It's not something that they can do. It's something that I have to do. I have to do it. And I becomes we. And then we have to do it. And then that we continues to expand until it includes children and family and grandparents and neighbors. And that's how we change. That's how we build families. That's how we build bridges.
My Be-Me sister Andrea said, a marriage ordained by God is a blessing to the two in the marriage and the family, without a doubt. And we got to come in, like she said, you got to come in equally yoked, but you got to define that. People have to define equally yoked, because what's another term to say equally yoked? We have to have some things in common. right? We have to have the same type of vision for the marriage.
Foundation,
You have
balance.
Foundation, balance.
Sure.
So, but again, as we say, literacy becomes an issue with men, ladies as well, because we have a we have an issue where we did not raise men. We cheated a lot of our boys who became men, husbands, and fathers, and so conversation becomes can be a flaw. But some of us, we have education, we have experience, we speak and we talk. So you might want to find someone, right, that's in your prayer that God can send to you that fits a certain criteria, but conversation and protection. If he's not speaking protection, I'm going to suggest that you understand what that sounds like, but not put yourself in harm's way. When a man cannot protect, if I come to the table and the first thing I'm talking about is sex, if I come to the table, the second thing I'm talking about is sex, and I come to the table and the third thing I'm talking about what you gonna do for me, I think we done missed a man should come to the table with a vision if he's serious about dating. If I'm dating you, I should come to this table seriously because I saw something in you that you can enhance with me, and together we can build this thing, right? But you have to understand how wisdom works for men. And a lot of us don't know.
Dave?
I was just thinking, that's humor. That's funny, Dave. Brother Dave. Yeah, I was thinking while you were talking, Scripture tells us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Listen is essential. You may have two ears, but it don't matter. We can hear the people in the background, but if I'm not actively engaging and listening and attempt to understand what you're delivering, I'm missing the point. And I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships. And we really haven't been taught to be active listeners. As a verb, it's an action. And when we begin to understand the importance of listening and the importance of getting meaning from what we're listening to, then we can begin to discuss these things. We can begin to build these things. We can edit it accordingly, because we all come in, as I said before, with a different background. We got a different education, we got different rearings, we got different exposure and environments, we got different culture, we got so much that's different. So if you're going to come into a relationship, you say, now I'm going to forsake all others for you. It's 8-point-something billion people in the world, and I'm going to forsake most of them just for you. Then that means that I'm willing to be vulnerable, because it's the first thing you got to consider when you start saying you're going to give your life up for somebody. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be open for what they're presenting to you to try to understand why they got to where they at. As I said before, we're not a product of today. We're a product of our yesterday. So we have to bring all that to the table, and you should be having that discussion. People go to pre-marriage counseling, but usually that's a short block of time. Before you even got to the preacher, you should have been already working on these issues and having these discussions.
Yeah.
I truly believe you got to take a loss to make a gain, and most people don't want to lose. That's why they stay in the game.
Well, and that's why bad business is bad business, because they're not willing to take a loss to make a gain. Mm-hmm. That's bad business, right? We need to understand that sometimes you got to take a loss to make a gain, right? We are you equally yoked? Same values, goals, beliefs. That's what Andrea said. Shout out to Jim Animal, Muscle Gang. What's up, brother? So, yes. Miss Heather?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important when we talk about soul listening that it is those things that ignite you. It is the things that ignite you and ignite your partner, your mate. Those are things you're listening for, and you're listening for what is the underlying message? What's the underlying barrier? What are those things? And how do I recognize that this is your trigger? Now, how do we work through that trigger? So I want to make sure that I'm not triggering you. I want to pay attention. I want to make sure that I'm sharing with you the things that trigger me, because I don't want you to trigger those things either. Mm-hmm. And if we're not having that conversation, we can't really be listening to one another. And because your soul is what enlivens you. It's what enlivens you. It's what enlivens your relationship. And so it's going to resonate within your spirit when it does that. But that may not be where it happens first. And if you're not if you're not putting that in perspective, understanding that when something hurts you or upsets you, you have to reflect on that, because that's you. The person may not even know that that's what's hurting you. Because like I mentioned, I know I deal with the strongholds, and I'm just going to read them off really quickly. It's pride, rejection, control, distraction, and abandonment. And these are typical issues that we deal with and we struggle with because it's in our backstory. This is our story of the inner child. These are things that have happened that you never matured. You never grew up in that thing. So if you didn't grow that thing up, it's still in that childlike state. So it's still very vulnerable and tender. And when it's triggered, you go into the same corner that you did when you were a child. And that corner of your mind where you're looking for someplace safe to hide, or someplace to try to process what's happened. And so we have to be better at recognizing that if somebody is upset or somebody is defensive, there is something under that has been triggered, and you might want to step back. Once when you see somebody responding and reacting to it, you don't want to keep antagonizing them. You see that the hurt might be present. You see that the anxiety might be present. Back off. Back up.
She said, back up.
I mean, and that's whether it's him or her.
That's right.
Have the care to know that you're trying to build something, and that may not be the right time to address whatever that is.
But that's where
Back up and
empathy comes
reflect.
into play. A person has to be empathetic, and many people's heart are so hardened through their experiences, they don't have that empathetic ear. You have to be able to put yourself in that person's place when you say, okay, these are my triggers. As I was sitting there listening to you, and I'm going to be quick on this, I was thinking to myself, how many people have these conversations? How many people get that? See, it's like, again, when you was a child, you thought as a child, reason to act as a child. But we have matured through our experiences and our lives, and we have come to a willingness to accept this knowledge that you're passing, right? But I know if we assess ourselves and our experience with other people and go in their household, how many of these conversations are being had that get this to this level? Talk about the 5 strongholds. How many people go there? So it's a lot of stuff that we bypass, and like you said, when it's all said and done, we're going to go back to our corner. This is what you have to have in a relationship before it gets to marriage. These discussions has to be done then.
Yeah, and again, because you are at a war, you got to be moving fast because you at war. You know what I mean? Because you got to do more than one thing, and I think a lot of times we'll spend a lot of time on certain things that we need to move on, right? That we need to, okay, here it is. But that comes into the maturity thing, the whole nine, right? Because, again, like you said, I mean, in my 30s, my reactions was different to a lot of things. But at the same time, I wasn't really a good man in my early 30s. Now, I was a good person, but I wasn't necessarily a good man, right? And so you have to understand those dynamics for all of us, men and women, understanding that, hey, if I get into this relationship, is God present? Is God present in all of the relationship? Not just, as you said, not just when we go to church on Sunday, is he present in that bedroom? Is he present in that bathroom? Is he present when you're sick? Is he present when you excel and success, right?
God, when you're angry.
Even when you're angry. I don't like to go there, but even when you're angry, right? Because then that's where you're mad at God for whooping your head, right? And then you got to really, because that's your relationship. But that's the essential relationship that every man has to have going into a relationship. And a lot of us is dodge God, like we playing dodgeball. And you can't do that. You can't win. It's not a winning thing. So, Heather. Oh, no. Dave first. Last second, and tell us where they can reach you at.
This is a good conversation. I think in reality, we need to have these discussions more often because I think a lot of people are not at that level yet because, again, avoidance is something many of us do because we don't want conflict. And the only way you're going to be able to win the war, you got to get in the battle. You can reach me at FMAM David Patterson at on Facebook. And you can reach me at DEROME, DROM7 at yahoo.com.
Miss Dr. Heather?
I just want to close with this, that if you are not seeking a relationship with God, then it's going to be difficult for you to seek a relationship with a mate, because there's some value in building that relationship and having some investment in it. And you need to have someone that you can go to that has authority to make the change that you want to see happen in your life and the life of the person that you have an interest in. So you can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspired with a D, journey.com. And you can reach me by phone. Please do not DM me. I would prefer to talk to you direct at 313-759-7855, 313-759-7855.
You can reach me at calvintman.com. You can book me at the same place. Speaking is on fire, coming out with all ingredients count this year and more to come. And we got a big announcement coming here. And but I want to say this, and I think it's important that we do pay attention to each other in relationships. Mm-hmm. I think that's really the important piece, right? You will pay attention when you get a man and he's in an intimate spot. Sometimes we use the intimacy to turn a person out. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna suck his soul out. I'm gonna do all those things, right? We use all these terms to get the man, and then once we got him, it's full blown manipulation. And it's vice versa. Men do all this stuff to get this woman. And then once you got her, you have intimacy. There was a study that went out that as soon as men finish sexually satisfying or having sex and he explodes, it's over. His disconnection rate is so high. It's so high that women, your connection rate is increased, is higher. And so a lot of times you see him pull away, get up, put on his pants, walk and go out the door. You miss the actual point of why the connection is so important for you to listen to him, to have the connection. What we have to stop doing is being pimps and players and player haters, and cut the manipulation out in relationships and build, because the culture has not grown. The African American, the black, the Negroes, our culture is not growing. So we need more marriages, successful families, and we need to go forward with this mindset. And with that being said, don't hate on yourself, because a good mate is worth $1 million or more. My name is Dr. Calvin T. Man. You have been listening to Put Your Family First podcast. I'm the president and founder of Encourage Me, I'm Young. You have a blessed day. We see y'all next week. We're going to bring on some powerful guests, and God bless you and encourage me. I'm Young. Peace.
Yeah,
Thanks everybody for coming in.
My father got his due, my family. I remember looking at an album, and my mother and father was producing their own thing. This for you, Pops. This for the family. We all got to do our part.
Read the paper, it makes you cry. So many bad things happening that you can't deny. You've got to do more than just pray. We should work hard, people, each and every day.
Love and change.